Happy Friday afternoon. Thank you for tuning in for the last Fermented Friday of April. We have just been cruising. It's been over a year that we've been doing this. We've been having a lot of fun introducing you, our live viewers, and our viewers who are tuning in later to breweries and brewery owners and beers that you may not have known about. This has been a really fun project. We're going to keep it going as long as we can and as long as we have breweries that are willing to join us. So before we get started, I'm going to give you a little bit of a scheduling update for some things we have going on in the works. So next week, we'll be joined by a slew of breweries to talk about a big collaborative release coming out of Seven Locks, True Respite, Ten Eyck Brewing, Old Mother, Crooked Crab. I may have missed one or two in there, but we have a big panel coming on next week to discuss Dina's Defiance. It's a collaborative release brewed in honor of Jim at Seven Locks' sister. She's battling some illness right now, and this is a great fundraiser that they've put together with some partners to raise some funds. So we're excited to help them promote that release. I know that Ten Eyck's release and Old Mother's release have both hit the market, so keep an eye out for those beers. And if you see them, please go and support them. Also, tomorrow you're going to see our social media start pushing out some stuff about the 2021 Build Your Own Maryland Craft Beer Festival. Sadly, the Maryland Craft Beer Festival in Frederick will not be happening this spring. So we have decided to open every tasting room in the state up as part of a statewide Build Your Own festival. It will start on the 8th of May and run through the 16th. So keep your eyes open for social media updates about the Build Your Own Maryland Craft Beer Festival. We hope to have some really cool and fun things going on throughout tasting rooms in Maryland that whole week. We want you to be a part of it. We want you to be able to enjoy Maryland beer and show your support for all those breweries that you love seeing down on Carroll Creek. Other than that, breweries are open. Outdoor spaces are open. Breweries are able to sell you beer. They're able to get you beer to go. They can get you beer for delivery. They can get you beer for curbside pickup. Whatever is most convenient, comfortable, and safe for you, breweries in the state are making that happen. So this weekend, while you're out enjoying the beautiful weather, please go and support a Maryland brewery. Whether you're buying a 6-pack or a 4-pack from your favorite local retailer, or you are buying a growler, 4-pack, whatever you like from your favorite brewery, just get out there, support Maryland beer, show us some love, and we very much appreciate it. I am waiting just a moment until I see my guest return back to his computer before I introduce him. But this afternoon, we're going to have a brewery and planning on. We don't do too many brewery and plannings. We usually have breweries that are already open and operational. But this is an exciting conversation that we're going to have today. My guest is Martin from Guilford Hall Brewery, and he reached out and said, hey, we've got a date coming on the calendar soon. I really would like to be there to talk about it on Fermented Friday, and I made it happen. So without further ado, Martin, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing great. How you doing, Jim?
I'm well. Hey, thanks for putting up with 3.5 minutes of an intro. I think that may be the longest I've done.
It was great. That was very informative intro.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. There are great things happening in the industry. We've got a great audience and community of craft beer lovers here in the state. And I think you guys are primed to benefit from the love that all these folks want to show.
Well, we certainly hope so. And thanks for having us on since we're one of the few brewery and plannings that you do feature. So we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always tough with brewery and plannings because we're typically balancing a lot of people who are dealing with a full-time day job, who are trying to open the brewery as part of their moonlight, and it's tough to schedule those kinds of things. So really excited to have you on this afternoon and learn more about your project before you guys get rolling. And before we start, anybody who's viewing that has questions for Martin, questions for me, feel free to throw them into the comments. We love to answer them live on the talk, and
absolutely,
and get you guys taken care of. Also, share comments about what you think of that beautiful looking beer that Martin's drinking right now. He's been making me thirsty for a few minutes already.
This is going to be one of our flagship beers. It's a nice Helles lager. That's going to be called our Guilford lager. So definitely be around all the time. So.
Perfect, crispy, delicious offering for a nice spring afternoon, right?
Yes, sir.
That's all right. So let's jump into this. What is Guilford Hall Brewery, and what is this project all about?
Sure. So Guilford Hall Brewery started out as a project a few years ago with the purchase of a very interesting, very cool building. We're in the northmost part of the original Crown Cork and Seal Factory, which some of you may know, or if you've driven by. They invented bottle caps back in the 1800s. And also in the 1800s, when this building was built, 1898, they were big into kind of Gothic architecture. So we have this really cool front entryway that actually does have gargoyles left. And there's a lot of character to the building. And so when it was purchased, a couple of the partners thought, well, what would be a good use for this? Well, it's got to be a brewery because of the history. And so that's where this project started. Now, Guilford Hall as a whole, what we're doing is we are focusing on traditionally brewed European styles that are easy drinking. We are focusing on the community. And we're developing a pretty big place here. So we have space for an entire beer garden out back. We have room to host 175-person weddings. We also have a full front beer garden with a custom-made bar. We're going to have a full kitchen, so a menu that's European fare, focused on pairing our core beers with our core food. So it's a pretty big project, especially for our first location. But we are super excited to be close. We're looking in the next couple of weeks to have at least a couple soft openings, and then we'll plan a grand opening soon after that. So
it looked like this project has been going on for a couple of years, or at least the planning idea of it has. So was this an idea that was born with the purchase of the building? Like as soon as the building was acquired, the light bulb went off that, hey, this would be the perfect home for a brewery?
Yeah, so it's a couple of partners here, and it's great working with them because they each have their own strengths that are awesome when working on a big project like this. One of them is in real estate. That's what he does for a living. And so when he purchased the building, that was the beginning of it. And another one's in finance. And another one is our contractor. So with all the rehab and construction that we had to do, having one of the partners as the contractor has been a huge deal. So it was just a conversation that they had about what's the best thing to do with the space. Also, in this neighborhood that we're in, Station North neighborhood in Baltimore, Greenmont West here. It's a really great neighborhood for this type of thing too. It's up and coming in many ways. There's a lot of new things that are opening up, new coffee shops, new apartment buildings. So having a community brewery just seems like it makes sense.
Well, and you're certainly adjacent to some other good communities of beer there in the city.
For
so
sure.
I think that definitely will help. It'll create kind of like an ability for a visitor to kind of travel through the city and enjoy beer and experience more of the city than just being in kind of like these little outposts that are kind of scattered throughout.
For sure. I mean, one thing I really love about the industry, as I'm sure you know, is that it's still in most places more collaborative than competitive. You know, what other business? There's not too many other businesses where somebody opens a place right across the street that's doing something similar to you. You're not sitting there shaking your fist all day like, why'd you have to open here? You know, and craft beer, that's great because then you're creating more places for people to go, and then more people come and more people go to all the breweries. So
that's absolutely it. And if your plans include great food, I think you're going to be a great destination. So that's good to hear.
Absolutely.
So
sure.
let's talk a little bit about the philosophy that's going to be guiding the brewery going forward. It's kind of a real. It's almost surprising to see a young brewery opening with the intent to have one of their flagships be a crisp, pale, beautiful lager, like you were just showing. Right now the hot trend is things that are made with really captivating ingredients and things that are kind of catching and striking on social media when you take pictures of them and the beer's either glowing in their black light or, super vibrant colors. What's
Sure.
guiding the philosophy behind beer?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. There's a lot of really, really creative things in the craft beer community right now. I remember the last time I was at GABF, for example, when pre-pandemic, obviously. There's just so much creativity in the craft beer industry, and it's such a beautiful thing. And there's so many different directions everyone's going with you, like you said, unique ingredients and creativity. What we're trying to do at Guilford Hall is a little bit of the old is new in a sense, in that there's a reason that if you go to a brewery in Germany and you drink beer fresh from the brewery in Germany, it's going to be way different. I'm sure most of your listeners are probably aware of beer and freshness, but it's going to be way different than, let's say, you buy at the store in Baltimore or anywhere in the U.S. because it's shipped, it's older, it's imported, right? So the idea that we're trying to do here is, a few people have a lager, a few people have these styles, but we have we've been lucky to be able to acquire some very nice, are you still there? Hello? Oh, are you still there? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I was giving you the stage for a minute.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. So we've had a great luck acquiring some very high quality older German brewing equipment. We have a Voxman brew house that's a little bit of an odd side, but it's a fantastic piece of equipment. It's a 23 barrel brew house that's capable of doing things like decoction mashing and traditional techniques. And we use entirely imported European ingredients for all of our different styles. So we are lager focused. But we're going to have some British styles and also some Belgian styles, leaving our theme fairly open as European easy drinking, because ironically enough, this is something that is a little bit of an opportunity in the craft beer market, because a lot of people are doing so many interesting, unique ingredient-based ideas. What we're going for is to make real beer, traditionally brewed, the way it is in Europe and the way it has been for many hundreds of years. Traditional ingredients, traditional brewing practices, and we hope enjoyable beer.
I think that's an awesome approach. I've noticed in places that I've traveled, as the beer industry in that area starts to mature, even though there are a lot of newcomers to the industry, you still end up with these pockets that need to be served in terms of style and all that kind of stuff. And as these destinations for craft beer start to mature, you start to see people carve out more and more what they're offering and how they're going to kind of distance themselves from the pack a little bit. One
Sure.
that stands out to me is Bierstadt in Denver, probably one of the best lager houses in the entire country.
Oh yeah, I love
in the middle of all of these
place.
Wonderful, unique breweries, but it stands on its own because it's doing its own thing, and I think that's really cool. And it kind of takes the spirit of craft beer to be able to do that and pull it off, even though you're offering what many would consider old or traditional styles of beer.
Right. So exactly, we're going for a similar vibe. We definitely what Bierstadt is doing in Denver, we definitely want to do for Baltimore.
So slow pour Pilsner all day, right?
All day. We have a Czech Pils as one of our flagships, Helles, a premium light, but also an English bitter and an Irish stout and a Belgian golden that we're going to debut with. So, so the general idea behind all of our beer is that it should be easy drinking. You should want to have more than one of them. We're going to have a bunch of different sized cool glassware. This year is a half liter, but at Guilford Hall, if you so choose, you'll be able to get any beer you like in a full liter stein. So
So you're really committed to bringing the experience of European beer enjoyment to the people of Baltimore and the beer fans of Maryland. That's awesome.
Absolutely, 100%. That's what we're all about.
Christian from Frank About Beer has a really good question. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. The spirit of collaboration is still very real in Maryland beer and in the brewing industry as a whole. With your love for European beer, who do you think would be a dream collaborator? And is there anybody locally that you would love to collaborate with as you guys start to expand the lineup?
Wow, that's a really great question. Thanks for that. A dream collaboration would be, I don't know where to start. So many great European brewers. It'd probably be, I'd want to do a collaboration with V and Stefan or something, or the Pilsner or Cal Brewmaster. I forget his name offhand. That would be a really crazy and fun collaboration. As far as Maryland goes, I'm open to anything. I love doing collaborations that supports the community of beer. And, I'd say if there's anyone out there who's interested in, playing around and with some ideas and having some fun, definitely reach out to me. So, going around different breweries as much as I have, I'm fairly new to the state. I'm from Chicago originally, and I moved here for this job last summer. So I have got around to as many breweries as I can. With the pandemic, it's been a little difficult, but I have been able to try a bunch of really, really great beer, I think, overall in Maryland. And I'd be happy to work with anyone. For sure.
I think you've got a lot of great opportunities here in the state. We've got some very talented brewers who, while many of them are producing things with, these new novel and exciting ingredients, really lean heavily on a preference for traditional beer and are very capable of producing wonderful traditional styles. So you're in very good company in the area.
Yeah. Well, there's great water here too, which is also cool.
Is your role at the brewery the brewer?
Yeah, so I'm the director of operations and brewmaster for Guilford Hall. So I guess I'm technically in charge of all the things, but I do have a brewmaster background. So during our opening here, I've been mostly playing around with the equipment and making some test batches and having fun in the brewery. So.
Where did you brew prior to coming to Maryland?
So most recently, I was at a place called Green Star Brewing in Wrigleyville in Chicago, a couple blocks from Wrigley Field. Really fun neighborhood. And we opened there the first all-certified organic brewery in the state of Illinois. So I was in the organic beer world for a while. Before that, I was the brewmaster for the Hofbrauhaus in Chicago that opened there back when they did that. And before, I was in the homebrew world. I worked for a homebrew store and started off as a home brewer and many years back. And before that, I was in restaurants and retail management. So I've been in the service industry for most of my adult life. No apologies needed. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's pretty cool that you're
It's a lot of fun.
to bring that that mindset of kind of what the expectation is of a guest in a full service environment. You can bring that to what you're producing and understand where that demand is going to be, and that's really cool. And I think it's 100%. Awesome to cut your teeth with Hofbrauhaus. That's pretty.
Oh, it was a really great experience. I got to work side by side with the international technical director of brewing for Hofbrau that travels around the world and everything. So it was really good.
What a great opportunity and a great way to work yourself into the industry. That's exciting. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
So what does the timeline at Guilford Hall look like right now? What are you guys working on? What's in the works in the building? It sounds like you have an operational system installed, so that's one thing checked off the list.
Yeah, absolutely. A very, very, very key item that we have a functioning brewery for sure. Yeah, so we do have a 100% functioning brewery. We're just making some finishing touches. We're on punch list in our restaurant construction, so that's really a good thing. And we're almost ready. There's just kind of small things, you know. Literally, what we're doing is going around and being like, that outlet is a little crooked. Can somebody fix that? You know. So we're really down to the nitty gritty.
It's the attention to detail time, huh?
Absolutely. 100%.
Very cool.
Very important. But yeah, super excited. You know, a lot of things are custom made from local companies. We have some really nice wooden tables that we're going to have in our front cafe that were made by a place called Anything Wood and Metal around the corner. We have a lot of rustic fun stuff that was part of the original building that we kind of inherited with the purchase that we repurposed. So we have things like old wheels that we're going to put on the wall. And, you know, we have this really, really gorgeous old phone booth, which I have no idea what or why it was here originally, but it came with the building. And it'd be interesting to figure out exactly how old it is. It has a leather fan in it. So literally, like back in the day when you're making your call, I guess the leather fan would come on and make sure you didn't get too hot. But there's a lot of cool little art pieces that we're going to have as part of our environment, and to keep the character of the building. So, but we are dangerously close. We've got you know, all of our stuff with the city worked through. So very soon.
It sounds like you're curating quite the ambiance for people to really come and just kind of enjoy everything about the place.
Absolutely. We're it's going to be, you know, experiential dining has been a big thing for people in recent years, and we're definitely all about that. We want you to feel transformed a little bit when you come to Guilford Hall into a different setting that's based on history, based on fun, and based on traditional beer and food, and we want you to come back for more.
So as a brewer yourself and as somebody who's been in the industry for a while, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in craft beer right now that are exciting to you as a fan of beer?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. Yeah. So, you know, I think probably like most people, I read all the newsletters and from the Brewers Association of America and everything. And, you know, I loved all that data that they track and everything. And every year they come out with what to expect this year. And I think this year's was the best. I don't know if you read that one. But you know, he was basically like, well, if I did that last year, if I published what I thought was going to happen, I would have been dead wrong. But it's you never know what's going to happen in craft beer. And that's part of what I love about it is there is boundless creativity. You know, even if you look at some fun brewing history to think about it, it always is interesting for me to think about what had to happen in Germany because of the Reinheitsgebot. You know, I'm sure most people are aware, but German purity law means that in Germany you can only make beer with malt, water, hops, and yeast. So no spices, no fruits. They couldn't really play around with anything. Otherwise, you couldn't call it beer. It's still the law there. So what happened? So brewers had to our naturally creative types had to find other ways to make interesting flavors and beers and play around with temperature and roasting the malts and different varieties of hops and et cetera, et cetera. And you have what's come, you know, to fruition, some really cool styles and things that people go back to again and again. So the sky's the limit with beer. As far as trends that I think are cool, I mean, I'm probably biased here, but I do like to see some return to tradition because me personally, I could drink a beer like this all day. But you know, I I like all the things. I'm a big fan of beer. I'll drink IPAs and hazies and everything in context for sure. That's yeah. So, how about you, Jim? What do you like to drink?
I'm starting to fall back into my love for traditional beer. I have been in and out of the industry for a while, and it's one of those things that all of these new ingredients and all of these new approaches to beer are exciting to try. But it's also nice to be able to just like fall back on something is always going to deliver that satiating experience where you're compelled to like feel good about it. Going out on a limb and trying new stuff is always great and exciting, and it's what draws you into a tasting room. And it is what's awesome about this industry. But I'm gravitating towards, Kolsch style beer is my go-to on most nights.
A good Kolsch is fantastic. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about too. Like I was talking about before, I love the creativity in the beer market, but if you go a little bit too far, you make a beer with alligator skin and chocolate and Affenbrätzel and celery or something, then I think a lot of people go, oh wow, I really have to try that. And so they go there and they try it, and then that's it. And then they go, do you have an IPA or a lager or something? So it's kind of an interesting thing. I think there's a lot of not all beers that are kind of out there. I've had some really great beers that I thought I wouldn't like, for sure, from a bunch of great people who really know what they're doing. I'm not talking about that. I'm just thinking if you kind of go too far, that becomes kind of like a marketing beer in a way.
Yeah, the gimmick doesn't always pay off, and I think that we have a very good group of breweries in the state who are aware of where that line is and are staying away from it as best as they can.
Sure.
I recall the first beer that I had that was like this overly hyped gimmick beer, and it was at GABF in 2012 for April Fool's. Wincoop had put out a video that they were putting festivals in a stout.
Oh, I hate to admit this, but when I was there, I didn't want to try it. One of my friends made me try it. I did not like it. But
I was thinking it like every time I'd stop by the Wincoop. I thought it was wonderful.
You love it? That's great.
Good. But I recall that being like the first time where it was like, wow, that's a wild ingredient that I have to try.
Oh yeah.
And now I can't go a week without looking at some of these Instagram feeds going, man, they did that. I need to give that a whirl. Just to experience it and see how it turns out. And fortunately, a lot of them are good. But every once in a while, I think somebody sits back and goes, man, I wish I could redo that one.
Well, there's a beer for everyone. There's enough breweries around where, chances are somebody's going to be making something that you'll enjoy. I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed is that I don't hear so much. I used to hear maybe 7 years ago, I want to say about I think there were more people who would just say, oh, I don't drink beer. There's still people who don't prefer beer, and that's fine. There's plenty of options to choose from. But I think I'm hearing that less because there's just so many different types of beer. There's almost a type of beer for everyone out there, every consumer. So,
will your model? We kind of touched on a little earlier. You've mentioned a few different styles that you intend to have, but will your model focus on a set of core releases, or is this something that's going to be rotating throughout to give a new experience each time somebody comes to Guilford Hall?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. So we're going to have 7 core offerings. It was the ones I'm talking about before. So we'll have a premium light. We'll have our Helles lager. We'll have a Czech Pilsner. We'll have a Vienna lager. We'll have a Belgian golden ale. We'll have a British pale ale. In English, what we're going to call an English session ale. The original style is an English bitter, but I like the term English session ale. I think it's more relevant these days than the history of the style. I don't know if you're aware of the history of the bitter style, but literally it was the most bitter style of beer in England at the time. But that doesn't apply anymore because it's under 20 IBUs. And we're going to have an Irish stout. So that's going to be our core that we roll out with. And then we're going to we have 10 taps total at the brewery. So we're going to have 3 rotating styles at any given time. So seasonals, brewer creativity. So there's always going to be something new and something you can rely on too. So.
That's awesome. It's good to know that there will be that balance for people coming in to always have that option to try something new and then fall back on the old reliable that they truly enjoy.
That's the goal.
Good thought on the name change for the bitter. I was just thinking it's like the ESB means nothing to anybody when you're talking about bitter anymore because the phrasing just has been so skewed by the advent of the super, high IBU American IPA.
Right.
That when you talk bitter, it really can deter people if they are not prone to enjoying, the West Coast double style or something like that.
Well, I think one story is always funny that comes to mind talking about people's palates kind of changing in real time is I read the book about written by about Lagunitas, by the guy who founded Lagunitas, and for many years he never entered in GABF or anything like that, and then because they were doing fine, they were successful and growing, and then when he started entering. I think the story is like it was like the late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. The feedback that he got from the judges was your IPA is too bitter or something like that. And then 5 years later, he got the feedback your IPA is not bitter enough. So it's an interesting thing to think about, and really interesting to me is reading a book about the Sierra Nevada founding when that happened back in the 80s. Nobody in America had any idea what anything like a pale ale, let alone an India pale ale was, and so from what they say, I'm sure they've tweaked it here and there. They use a similar recipe. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is great pale ale, but it's not overly bitter, overly strange. But they had a really hard time selling it to bars when they debuted because people didn't know what to think of it. It didn't even taste like a beer back then because it was too bitter and too different. So these days, I bet. Well, these days we're coming around full circle with hazy and juicy. It's less of a focus on bitterness and more of a focus on flavor, which is kind of cool too. But we've gone all different extremes, which is good in many ways. I remember there was a time where it was kind of like guys with their muscle cars in the IPA world, where it was like one guy buys a Ferrari and the next guy buys a Lamborghini. But you still all have to drive the speed limit, So I'm going to make it more bitter. I'm going to make it extremely more bitter. And then, the science behind it, I think, is that you have to pass a certain IBUs. The human palate can't discern, I don't think. I forget what the number is offhand, but I think
people offer ranges between 90 and 110 or something like that.
Right. So,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I came into the craft beer industry working for Dogfish Head at one of their working for one of the companies affiliated with them that operated restaurants here in Maryland. And the 60-minute, 90-minute IPAs, that was like the thing. Yeah. We were selling those people at kind of the birth of IPA making it mainstream. And it really was, you would see that machismo pop up between two guys at the bar. Well, I like the 60-minute. Well, I like the 90. Oh, if you had the 120, and it was all about how hoppy that beer could be.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's like, is this I can tolerate this more than you, or is it that I enjoy this more than you? Like, what are you arguing about right now?
For sure.
So I find that to be interesting, and I think that was a trend. This idea of driving the IBU count higher and higher, and just being invasive with hop bitterness. I'm glad that some of that has given way, but I do certainly miss a beer kind of dries my palate out and makes me needing another sip.
Sure. Yeah. Needing another sip. Water, please. More beer. Were you at Dogfish when they did? I read that they did a 676 IBU beer just to like push it to the limit because that was the highest that the instrument would go to in the lab.
I was not there then, but I definitely heard about that. And then, it was like on the tail end of that, you had all the stuff with the guys over at Brewdog and whoever it was in Germany that they were working against to come up with the highest ABV beers in the world. And it was like, that's a whole different conversation. How are you doing that? How are you producing these? And you're not telling people the story behind like ice distillation and how that works. So you missed out on this huge educational opportunity. So,
and then, I guess coming a little bit full circle. So if you make a beer that's 50% alcohol, is it more of a beer or a whiskey? A carbonated chilled whiskey. I mean, I know it's still a beer. I'm not saying that it's not, but one thing that some people are calling for, I think a little bit. Dr. Bamforth at UC Davis was talking a little bit about it. It's like some people are thinking about, should there be, we don't want to restrict people in the U.S. at all, and because that wouldn't work anyway. But like we don't want to be like Germany and say like you can only make beer this way. But there's a little bit of a movement towards saying like at some point, is it still a beer? Which would be an interesting conversation to have. And I don't know that I'm for or against it. I'm probably against because it would limit creativity in many ways. But, things like that. Like you have a 55% or 53%, was it, I forget, alcohol beer.
What was that, the end of history or something like that? It was 50. I think it was 53%. I think you're right.
Yeah. So there's different things like that. And sometimes I'll drink a beer and I'll think that to myself. I think, well, this is a really tasty beverage. But if somebody handed it to me and said, try this, and I didn't, that they're handing me a beer, would I think that it's a beer? So that's an interesting question to think about because there's a bunch of really great stuff. So coming full circle, what I'm talking about is a bit of what we're trying to do at Guilford Hall is, we're going to have a full bar. We're going to have a cocktail list. We're going to have wine. We're going to have gluten-free options. We may even brew some. We're going to have different beverages. But a little bit, in our theme is if you want a beer at Guilford Hall, well, we have beer.
I know that can be an approach as a consumer.
But it's a little bit of going back to our theme.
You may have been trying to put a cat back in the bag there a little bit, but you said something about gluten-free options and you may produce them. So is there a potential that there's going to be a Guilford Hall seltzer lying around?
Sure. But everything that we do is going to be related to our theme.
Very cool.
Already started thinking about ideas, all of it easy drinking. But, since the market is the way it is, like there's a lot of cool alcoholic seltzer waters out there and a lot of brewers doing great, fun things. But I think it might be cool. I haven't decided yet, but inside track, maybe like a German dry hop seltzer might be interesting. So.
That's why people enjoy tuning into this. They often find out about things that are either kicking around in somebody's mind or on a piece of paper somewhere that haven't come to fruition yet, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, now we get to remind them of that in 6 months."
Right. Yeah. Come by on a tour. Did you make that yet?
Hey, where's that German dry hop seltzer you were talking about? Amethyst has an interesting suggestion. Amethyst is a friend of ours from Checker Spot and Pink Boot Society in Maryland. She suggested a pierogi seltzer.
Pierogi seltzer. That's a great suggestion. I love it. That'd be cool. That'd be you'd have to help me, Amethyst, as far as exactly how I would do that, though. I don't know what.
Yeah, what exactly are we looking for profile wise here? Cheddar cheese or? So what other examples of successful models like what you're producing at Guilford Hall are available regionally? Is there anywhere else that you guys are drawing some inspiration? Is there anywhere that you've been that you're like, man, the way that they're doing things here in the region is missing somewhere in Maryland, and that's what we're going after? Or is it just more holistically kind of looking at the industry and the marketplace and saying, hey, that's a niche that needs to be filled, and we're the ones to be able to do it?
Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of the way a lot of cities are nationwide, and the amount of breweries per capita in a lot of cities nationwide, you look at a place like Portland. Portland, there's so many breweries. You can, if you don't stumble over one every 2 feet, you're not looking around. And, and because of which they all have to make really phenomenal beer. Otherwise, they don't survive. And what you have is a situation where people are making really great beer and still closing down because there's too much competition per capita. In Chicago area, where I was, there's a lot of breweries, but there's still opportunity for kind of smaller, I'd say brew pub, corner brewery type places. And then coming over to Baltimore, one thing that I'm excited about is that there is a good amount of breweries, but I think there's still a lot of opportunity for all of us. If you look at kind of the per capita numbers, we're not near saturation, so there's a lot of room for different themes. I don't know that I would model off of anyone in other cities around here that I can think of offhand. That's kind of what we're going for. I'm sure with so many breweries around that I'm not the first one to think of this idea, but it's something that I haven't seen in the way that we're trying to do it in the Maryland area, and so I hope that that's going to be part of our merit. So
that's awesome. I can't think of any great examples of super successful locations in the last couple of years that have opened with solely the idea of tradition in this whole region. And sadly, some of the ones that really brought tradition to the forefront kind of, if you go up north a little bit, kind of washed out as the industry became a little bit more competitive around them, and they weren't offering anything new. It was, these are our beers and this is all we do. They weren't focused on seasonal releases, and their food was not matching what they were offering. So they had those troubles. And that's why I'm curious, because the successful version of what you're talking about, and what you guys are going to be bringing to Maryland, really, I think, is what the region needs. I don't know that it's just something the state needs.
Well, thanks, Jim. We definitely hope so. We're going to innovate, and we're going to have new offerings, but it's always going to be within the umbrella of our mission and our theme.
Sure.
If I ever make a, alligator meat Pilsner, then you can feel free to come over here and remind me that doesn't really work with my theme. But, I don't really see that happening. So we're, there's kind of a tried and true business phrase that I kind of think of right now, which is do what you can do well, and do it very well, and stick to it. We we want to make all of our customers happy. We want to have a place that everyone wants to come to. But we have a particular theme, and a theme that I think everyone's going to like. So we're always going to come back to that. One of my favorite comedies is sometimes looking at particular Yelp reviews that some people have. I saw this one Yelp review one time somebody said it's a cheeseburger place that opened up, I think, in Chicago, and I said, I don't like burgers, 1 star. So literally, the place does cheeseburgers. I don't like burgers, 1 star. So we're definitely going to welcome all customers, and there'll be a little bit of customer education sometimes, I'm sure, but we're all about it, and we're going to stick to our theme.
I think that's great. I appreciate the gumption to stick with it and have such a cool model. And frankly, it's a novel model. It's a model that's kind of escaped breweries for a while. To turn back to tradition, and embrace that as the identity, I think is really cool.
And yet there's places who make traditional styles all the time in Europe, and that's all they do. There's places who have 1 beer, and they're perfectly fine.
That's true. So. I was just going to add the comment that as we've been talking, our office Slack channel is blowing up because everybody is like, lagers, we're all on the lager train right now. Or Schwartz beer, we all want Schwartz beer.
Yes.
So, everybody is in right now. Everybody's watching and having fun. So thank you for enlightening us and sharing your plans with us.
Absolutely. It's great to be
Before
here.
I let you go, what are you most excited about with the opening and with the community there in Baltimore?
Oh, so many things. I mean, one of the things I love the most about my job is hosting a packed place full of people and looking around, seeing them having a great time, and knowing that I was somewhat a part of it. So I'm just excited to have people, especially after a pandemic year. I'm excited to have people around enjoying themselves, having fun. I'm excited about the community and the city because they've been all really great to us. The Greenmont West community is really supportive, and they're all excited about us opening. And then, like I was talking about before, there's some new places, some new buildings, apartment buildings. So more people coming in. And it's even though I'm fairly new to Baltimore, I think it's a really great city. I honestly do. I think it's a great place where the people are friendly enough, and by that I mean it's not like New York where everyone's too busy to talk to you. Here, people say hello to you in the streets, and there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of great things here. It's a good sports town. Love the stadiums. Crabs are delicious. I personally have always preferred crab as opposed to lobster. So.
Look at you trying to make all the new friends.
Well, it's the truth, for sure.
So are you a White Sox fan or are you a Cubs fan?
Well, I grew up on the north side, so there's north side, south side division. So if I had to pick, it would be Cubs. But I'm an Orioles fan now. So.
Well, I was going to say, you have room for an American League team if you're a Cubs fan.
That's right.
See, I grew up rooting for the Red Sox, and then I moved to St. Louis for a good portion of my life. Well, I actually lived in Southern Illinois, but I became a Cardinals fan. Never fell in love with the Cubbies, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, to each their own. We're going to have some European sports days too, so that'll be fun. We'll have rugby days and soccer days, so we'll have different events. And then, one really great advantage among many advantages is in our event space. We have a bunch of space to do a bunch of cool different things. We could have music. We could have bingo night. We could have conferences. We could have all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, that'll be great. Well, we are all looking forward to joining you for your soft openings or any of those dates that you have available for the public to be joining.
I'll definitely let everyone know when we do have something solidified on the books, which should be dangerously soon. So.
We've got a lot of people in the chat that are excited for you guys to open, so I'm really looking forward to this. Amethyst and Judy at Checker Spot are talking about dusting off dirndls and finding reasons to wear those.
I might have to wear my lederhosen then.
Oh, there you go. I'll get a feather hoot and I'll come join you.
Definitely.
All right. Well, it's been fun chatting with you this afternoon. I look forward to having you on again in the next couple of months once you guys have the brewery operational and open to the public, and we can talk about the success that you're seeing, because I think you guys have a great model ahead of you. You're in a wonderful community of brewers there, so I look forward to seeing how you guys figure out how to play together and collaborate. I think there's some really great, promising stuff on the horizon. So thanks again for joining.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jim. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Take care.
And everybody who tuned in this afternoon, thank you very much for tuning in for one more Fermented Friday. Again, this was the last Fermented Friday of April. We have some scheduled for May already. I talked about the Dina's Defiance collaboration talk that we're going to have next week. The week after that, we're actually having a chat with several of the founders of the Brewers Association of Maryland. So we've got some really fun stuff coming up for you. But please follow us on Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. If you're tuning in on YouTube right now, please subscribe and hit that little notification button. That way you know when we're going live and you don't miss our talks. Check out marylandbeer.org for everything else that's happening. And we'll see you next week. Have a safe weekend.